Today, we turn our attention to a subject that has defined the relationship between Nigeria's ivory towers and the government for over a decade. The long-standing dispute between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, and the federal government. Now, at the heart of this dispute is the 2009 agreement signed between both parties. That agreement promised improved funding for universities, better conditions of service for lecturers, earned academic allowances, revitalization of public universities, and the autonomy to manage their affairs. 15 years later, many of those promises remain unfulfilled. Now, over the years, we've seen repeated strikes that have disrupted the academic calendar, leaving students stranded and parents frustrated. The issues have ranged from inadequate budgetary allocations to education, withheld salaries, and disagreements over payment platforms like the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, IPIS, versus University Transparency and Accountability Solution, UTAS, to the broader demand that government commit at least 26% of the national budget to education in line with UNESCO's recommendations. Now, for ASUU, the struggle is about saving Nigeria's public universities from collapse. For the government, it is often a question of limited resources and competing priorities. What is clear, however, is that each time these negotiations break down, it is the students and the future of Nigeria's human capital that bear the heaviest burden. So this morning, we'll be asking, where exactly do things stand with the 2009 agreement? Why has it been so difficult to find a lasting solution? And what is the way forward for Nigeria's universities? To help us unpack these issues, we're joined by Professor Piwuna, National President of ASUU. He joins us live via Zoom from Jos, the Plateau State capital. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Professor.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, let's dive right into it. We've always, seen the, should I say, struggle between ASUU and federal government trying to get to a point of agreement when it comes to the welfare of, lecturers as well as staff of universities. So the first thing that, would like a clarity on is what are the key terms, when it comes to the 2009 ASUU federal government agreement, and why has it been so long? It's been 15 years since that agreement, and how come it's still not been fulfilled? So what is the trajectory at this particular point?
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for the interest in these issues. And it's not just an ASUU issue. It's issue for Nigerians. It's issue for students. It's an issue of our future as a country, as we strive to develop, as we try to make progress as a nation. You just reported the president in Brazil. No matter what he signs in Brazil, no matter the agreements they sign in Brazil, if this country does not develop the manpower that is needed to actualize all these things that he is signing in Brazil, then it will be useless. He talked about corruption. How can you eliminate corruption in the society? It's by education. Educate people, teach them, principles to live by, that in this society, there are rules, and we need to keep to those rules, that we're better if we live decent, honest, transparent lives than stealing from public purse. That starts, from education. You need to imbibe those values, those virtues in students, in pupils, and all of that. So there is need for government to pay attention to education. It is that need that ASUU has realized, and we felt over the years, government has not paid enough attention to education to allow us develop. In this day and age, if your education is not sound, there's no way you are going to develop. There's no way. I mean, look at the pace other countries, even in Africa, some African countries, the pace at which they are making progress. Without education, what would it be? And so we said, look, our educational sector, particularly the public universities, were not at speed, keeping to speed with this development. We need more funding in the system. And so this 2009 agreement talks about funding for public education. But let's not even just generalize the issue of funding. We identified specific means, ways in which education could be funded in Nigeria. We talked about the budgetary allocation that you raised, the 26%, and we realize that there are so many competing demands on government. And so even that 26% is not what we're talking about. We are talking about, for a start, 15% budgetary allocation to education. And in that 15%, we have not even asked government to give 15% budget allocation to education in one fell swoop. No, we said, can we gradually increase our budget yearly until we hit that 15%? So let's say this next year, 2026, government allocates 2% more than they did in 2025. In 2027, another 2%. In 2028, another 2%. Until we hit that percent. But there should be a progressive increase in the budgetary allocation to education. So we've shown understanding. We've told government how to do it. We have also told government that this envelope system of budgeting does not work with our universities. So you have a budgetary allocation. What you see in the envelope is what you use. That's the system now. We're saying budgetary allocation to universities should be based on needs of those universities. We have also suggested to government that there are ways in which we can increase funding for education. Phone calls, tax on phone calls, getting a consolidated account, and keep a certain amount of money. We have specified to government how funding can be done. That is one. Number two, in the 2009 agreement, we also talked about conditions of service. Our salaries have literally remained stagnant since the 2009 agreement was signed about 16 years ago. And this does not only concern academic staff. SANU, they are complaining about the same thing. NASU, it's the same thing. NAT, it's the same thing. And so there was a need for government to look at our conditions of service in a very comprehensive way. Because what's the point if you give ASUU and you don't give SANU, or you don't give NAT, some improvement in their pay? So we have been pushing government to ensure that our conditions of service improve. In addition to that, the 2009 agreement talks about university autonomy and academic freedom. Look at it. If you have gone through the universities, anybody, academic freedom, what is it that government is saying they won't sign? Tell me, what is it in the academic freedom? All of us know. If I decide as a researcher in political science to write that the way this government, our democracy is working is not right, I should have the freedom to do that. That has always been there. So what is their fear about academic freedom? If the universities are talking about autonomy, government will always tell you that, they are giving money, he who dictates, how do they say it? He who plays the piper dictates the tune, something like that. Because they are giving money to the system, they should determine. That is just an aspect of autonomy. Autonomy talks about governance issues in our universities. The university works through committee system. So our autonomy will ensure that these practices are further sustained and deepened. What is their fear about that kind of autonomy? Tell me. So this issue about 2009 agreement is, to be honest with you, just lack of sincerity and lack of seriousness on the part of government. If government is sincere, they will look at these issues and decide that these things make sense. I mean, think about it. All these things that I've said, what is it that government is afraid of in signing that agreement? Is it that they don't want to improve our salaries? Is that it? Is it that they don't want to fund the universities, public education? Is that what the problem is? So I think they're just not giving education the attention it deserves. And union of intellectuals, we have decided that we will continue to hold them accountable. We will continue to challenge them. We will continue to put these issues in the front burner until they are addressed.
Now, Professor, there has been a lot of back and forth between the ASUU and the federal government over the years. And now...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you. I said there has been a lot of back and forth over the years between ASUU and the federal government. And then each time ASUU comes out, to protest, it's always, we always go back to, the 2009 amendment. And now let's bring it to the present. Beyond that old agreement, what exactly is on the table today? I mean, what is the main problem ASUU still has with the government right now?
Well, thank you very much. This question is quite connected to the previous one that we asked. And so let me say it this way. When Nigerians hear 2009 agreement, the impression being created is that there is a document that has been on the shelf since 2009 and nothing has been done to it. That's not the case. That document had been taken off the shelf in 2017. So government set up a committee headed by Baba SAN. We sat and reviewed that document with Babalakin. We didn't reach an agreement. Government set up another committee headed by Professor Munzali Jibril. Professor Jibril sat with us. We looked at the 2009 agreement and reviewed it and agreed with them on a document to go back to government. Government did not act on it. Government again set up another committee headed by the late Professor Nimi Briggs. We looked at the Munzali Jibril document, page by page, item by item, and agreed on what needed to be modified in that agreement. We have a draft agreement with Munzali Jibril. Sorry, with Professor Nimi Briggs. It was left for the government side to take it back to their principals, and we go back to our people and say, this is what we've agreed to. We have done that on our site. We have considered the document. The government didn't get back to us. This government now came into power and set up the Yaya Ahmed committee. We have sat with Alhaji Yaya Ahmed, one of the best technocrats, one must say, that we have today in this country. Alhaji Yaya Ahmed is familiar with ASUU's documents from 1991. There's hardly any agreement that ASUU had signed with government that Alhaji Yaya Ahmed is not familiar with, because he had worked as a permanent secretary in the Federal Ministry of Education for a very long time. We sat with him. We agreed on another draft agreement as of December 2024. That is last year. We have concluded with Alhaji Yaya Ahmed. Government has refused to agree on certain terms of the agreement. So that is where we are with the 2009 agreement. It is not an old document that was signed in 2009 that we're still talking about. It has been reviewed over and over and over again, and government has not acted on it. And that's where the problem is.
But why do you think the government is yet to act on it?
Of seriousness, lack of sincerity. They are not serious about education. They want to do education the way they want to do it. They don't want to listen to anybody. In fact, our feeling is that government wants Nigerian universities to go the way Nigerian public primary schools have gone. They want Nigerian universities to go the way secondary schools, public secondary schools have gone. You are aware, you are a Nigerian, you are aware that today there's hardly any amongst us that is sending his child to a public primary school. The LGEA primary schools, LGD primary schools that we went to, nobody is sending his child to those schools because they are virtually carcasses. So every town now has private primary schools in the streets, every street and every angwa, as we say in the north. Everybody has a private primary school. So that is the way they want Nigerian universities to go. And to us, that can be the best explanation why they are not paying attention to university education. Because they want to privatize everything.
All right. Professor, you made mention of the back and forth that you've had with the federal government on, renegotiations, sitting, having, committees, the meetings and all of that. So, but how has ASUU's, approach to these negotiations and, the consistent industrial actions shaped the outcomes since 2009? Because, so far we've seen that due to the industrial actions that's been going on, the strikes or, the protests that's been going on, ASUU is not satisfied. So with these negotiations, do you mean that nothing has been looked through the agreement and nothing has been done, not even in let's say in its entirety, but then some of the things in those agreements?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you've explained everything yourself. In that agreement, we have always made ourselves available to government. We have never hesitated a day for a meeting. We all stay out of Abuja. All the officers of the union, except one, we all stay out of Abuja. Anytime they call us, we come from Calabar, we come from Port Harcourt, we come from Kano, we come from Jos, we come from Makurdi, everywhere to meet with them. So dialogue has always been our first option. In fact, our standing in ASUU is that if the devil that we know, if the devil can come in human form and sit on the table over these issues, we're ready to discuss with him.
But
so
Professor,
we are open to discussion.
The items in the agreement have been agreed upon. Nothing, the federal
This process is timely.
Implemented any part of the agreement.
Well, there's no part of the agreement that has been enforced. We have agreed with the government team on each of those items. We have sent the document back. We have highlighted the items here with you. Funding, conditions of service, academic freedom, university autonomy, review of some laws of JAM, NUC. We have agreed with the government team on each of these documents. What is left is for the government team to go back to government and say, look, this is the document we have agreed with ASUU. What do you think? And then the government will tell them how they feel about those things, and they get back to us. That is where we are. There is no disagreement between us and the government side on each of these items. It is, but the way collective bargaining works is that once you get to that point of agreeing on these items, the other side will go back to its principle. For the Yahya Ali Ahmed Committee, their principle is the president, the Ministry of Education, the federal government. they will go back and say, look, these are the things we've agreed with ASUU. Do you accept it? So we can go back to ASUU and tell them you've accepted this, and tell them you don't want this. That is where we are. So on the items, we have agreed with them. We've agreed with them. It's just for them to get back to us on what their principals have agreed to. That's where we are. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
All right, you made mention of salaries, and we all know that it's one of the major requests that ASUU is asking from the federal government: salaries, allowances, the whole lecturers' welfare package. So what? Let's talk about the welfare of lecturers themselves now. What is wrong with lecturer salaries and conditions at the moment? Is it really that critical?
Well, I think the one way you can look at this issue of salary is to look at this Japa syndrome. People immigrate, they leave the country, they look for better conditions of service elsewhere. I'm a medical doctor. In the hospital, Jos University Teaching Hospital, where I've worked, in the last 2 years, at least up to 20 consultants, doctors at consultants level, have left this country. As a head of department, it's hardly 3 months that will pass that I will not give a reference letter to a resident doctor that wants to relocate out of this country. It's the same thing that is happening to lecturers. If everybody is leaving because of the salary, one of the conditions of service, salary, what do you do with the salary? Why can't you improve the salary and retain the staff? African countries are taking our lecturers. Go to Uganda today. I can assure you that you will not find anything less than 20 Nigerians that are lecturers, at least. Sometimes in one university. So Ghana is paying more than us. Uganda is paying more than us. Kenya is paying more than us. Even Liberia is paying more than us. Why do you want our lecturers to stay? So salaries are critical, comrade. Salaries are critical if we want to retain our staff. Come to a university to find foreign students in classrooms. Why would they come here anymore? Because lecturers fight their pay, so they are constantly on strike. Their labs are at their worst. Reagents are not available. Hostel is an issue. How do you attract lecturers and even foreign students? In our so it's a surprise that our universities continue very low when it comes to university rankings. In the whole of there are just 3 universities in Nigeria out of the 333 universities in Nigeria. We have less than 5 of them that are in the top 1,000 in Africa. Not to talk about the world. Ibadan, Ife, Nsukka, I think Zaria or Ilorin. Very few. And it's because our pay is low. So people are leaving. Part of it is because our facilities are not being upgraded. So people are not satisfied with the conditions of service. I always cite this example. Go to any university in Nigeria today, public university in Nigeria, and ask female lecturers whether they are comfortable to use any restroom in the university. Can you imagine? That is the standard. That is how our universities are. So if I'm a lecturer and I'm pressed and I'm a woman, I'll drive back home before I come back to the university. You remove subsidy on fuel, you drive home and you come back with the current salary that you are getting. So you see, unless government is willing to look at these issues and address them, we will continue to have problems. We will always have this issue of strikes and threats of strike, and the instability in our system will continue. And as the instability continues, all of us are suffering.
All right,
all of us are suffering. Yeah. Who told you that lecturers are happy with strikes? Some of the students that suffer the strike, are they not our children? They leave our homes to go for lectures. Our wives are doing master's degree. They are doing PhD. We are all affected. We're not happy with it, but we have to do what we have to do to correct the system.
All right, Professor, I was getting to that. I was going to say that we know that not only the lecturers that are impacted with this strike that does go on, the students go through a lot as well as the parents of the students and anyone that in relation to that. So what are the long-term impacts of the current ASUU strikes on Nigeria's educational system?
Maybe I went ahead of myself in answering the question, because that was the point that I'm making. Of course, our quality of education will continue to go down. Our ranking, university rankings, whether it's Africa or globally, will continue to go down. Staff will be demoralized. For as long as they are demoralized, the system doesn't run efficiently. We'll continue to have students that are half-baked when they graduate, and there is that moral, psychological burden that everybody who works in the system carries, because we know that it is not what it is supposed to be. This is not the system. This is not the way the system should run. And we just want to urge everybody, you members of the press, to help us be our advocates, not advocates for ASUU. That's not what we're asking. Be advocates for a better educational system in this country, and you're doing it. This interview is one of those opportunities that you've given us to highlight these issues. Traditional rulers, religious leaders, parents, teachers association, everybody should make this issue his issue, because it is about our future. It is about our country. It's not about ASUU. ASUU is just fighting for a better system. Yes, we talk about our salaries, and you could say, oh, our salaries are ours. But unless we are also incentivized in the system, we're not going to give our best.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Chris Piwuna, National President of ASUU, for highlighting all that is when it comes to the federal government and ASUU. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.